On the gridiron, words carry little weight.
You just can't ignore Shannon Sharpe.
Your actions define greatness, leaving no room for error.
America, we are killing the Patriots. So call the dogs off.
Champions don't seek excuses. But what happens when a player can transcend not only the game he played, but the sports world it lives within?
I'll be on the mile.
That is what we are witnessing in real time. But how does one become such a polarizing figure? This isn't a stroke of luck, nor is it a mistake. Shannon Sharpe's impact stretches far beyond the football field. From his early days in Georgia to his current status as a sports media titan, Sharpe's story is one of perseverance, triumph, and unyielding charisma. Shannon Sharpe's story begins in Chicago, Illinois, where he was born to parents Mary Alice Dixon and Pete Sharpe on June 26, 1968. A mere 3 months after Shannon was born, his parents would go through a divorce, and his grandmother, Mary Porter, would come to Chicago and take a young Shannon, his older brother Sterling, and older sister Libby back home to the South to live with her for an indefinite future. The small town of Glenville, Georgia was where Shannon would call home, with a population just south of 3,000 people. It was a rural area, known for pecan farming as well as other agricultural development. Sharpe faced brutal challenges of poverty in Glenville, instilling in him a relentless work ethic and determination. Sharpe lived in a 1,000 square foot home in Glenville. This was a home that had no running water or indoor plumbing, a cement floor, a leaky roof, and on top of all that, Shannon lived there with his siblings, his grandparents, and also other family members at times. Shannon said there was between 7 and 10 people sharing the space. Shannon did not even take a real shower until he was in the 4th or 5th grade at a camp that he went to. He even had to pretend the shower was not working to get help from someone else because he did not know how to turn the shower on himself. Shannon attended school in his elementary and middle school years, but once the school day was over, Shannon and his brother would work. They would work in the evenings until sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning. They would round up hogs that escaped. They would pick tobacco in snake-riddled tobacco fields. They would ride with their uncle to catch chickens, and they would be paid $1 for every 1,000 chickens they caught. All of this to return home and have to be awake at 7 a.m. to go to school and start it all again. This type of lifestyle would seem tough to the overwhelming majority of Americans, but this was the only life that Shannon knew. It hardened him. At a very young age, Sharpe was determined to make something of himself. He's quoted saying, "I knew my body was in Glenville, but my mind was 1,000 miles away. I knew that wasn't what I was going to be when I got older." Even at the young age of 12, Shannon asked his grandmother, Mary Porter, what did she want him to buy once he became successful? Her answer? A decent house. Shannon had been right there with her on the rainy nights when they would have to put pots and pans out to catch rainwater through their leaky roof. Shannon was there when they had to put plastic on furniture in the anticipation of a storm. His grandmother's only wish was to go to bed when it rained and not wake up and be wet. Shannon prayed for years and years he would be able to make her dreams come true, and football slowly revealed itself as the vessel in which he would do it. Football became an escape and a dream for a young Shannon, and he and his brother Sterling found solace in the sport, honing their skills on the dusty fields of their neighborhood. Despite financial hardships, Sharpe's family provided a supportive environment, emphasizing the importance of education and hard work. These early life lessons would lay the foundation for Sharpe's future success and resilience. In 1983, big brother Sterling went off to college at South Carolina University. Sterling was an outstanding wide receiver for the Gamecocks. He was a 4-year starter, broke several season and career records, and at the end of his senior season, his number 2 jersey was retired, making him just the second player in USC history to have their number retired while still playing. He would go on to be the 7th overall player taken in the 1988 draft by the Green Bay Packers. Shannon's path to the NFL would take on a different trail. Shannon grew up in the shadow of his older brother. While both excelled at football from a young age, Sterling was 3 years Shannon's senior, and while Sterling was headed off to college, Shannon had a name of his own to make. Shannon would star as Glenville's running back, quarterback, and linebacker throughout his high school career. He followed in his brother's footsteps, being selected all-county, all-region, and all-area in football.
In addition to lettering in football 4 times, he earned 4 letters in track and 3 letters in basketball. As a junior, he broke the Georgia Class A mark in the triple jump, 48.3, and broke his own mark as a senior, 48.9. Once he completed high school, he elected to stay close to home and received a scholarship to attend Division II Savannah State University, about an hour from his home in Glenville. Shannon would not only play football, but also basketball, as well as competing in track and field. But on the gridiron was where Shannon shined the most. At SSU, Sharpe not only continued to excel on the football field, but showcased his versatility as a wide receiver. He was selected 3 times as an All-American, 3 times All-Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and was a 3-time choice as the conference Offensive Player of the Year, all while leading the team in receptions in each of his 4 years at Savannah State. Sharpe led the Tigers in 1988 and 1989 to a combined record of 15-4, including the all-time best 8-1 record in 1989. As a senior, he caught 61 passes for over 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns. He had 3 games with 200 or more yards and 1 game with 4 touchdowns. Sharpe finished his 4-year career with 192 receptions for 3,744 yards and 40 touchdowns. In his final 2 college games, Sharpe became the first Savannah State player to play in the Blue-Gray Classic and the East-West Shrine Game. His athleticism and dedication to the sport didn't go unnoticed, and in the 1990 draft, Sharpe was selected by the Denver Broncos in the 7th round. By the time Shannon was taken in the 1990 NFL Draft, his brother Sterling had already established himself as one of the top wide receivers in the league, receiving All-Pro and Pro Bowl honors in the 1989 season. Being a 7th-round pick, Shannon had quite the shoes to fill if he was to set himself apart from his brother. The Broncos were coming off a Super Bowl appearance in 1989, so Shannon felt privileged to be drafted by the organization. However, his first 2 seasons did not go as planned. Shannon was drafted as a wide receiver, but at his 6'2", 230-pound stature, Sharpe was considered too big and too slow to play the position. During preseason of his rookie year, he recalled being told by a position coach before the final preseason game that his name was on the board to be cut the next day. Shannon did not know whether he'd play or if he'd get many opportunities. Shannon was able to make the team his first year, but this was not the end of adversity in his career. He struggled to find his footing. He had only 29 catches over his first 2 seasons, and during the next offseason, he was tapped by Broncos athletic trainer after a meeting, who told Sharpe that head coach Dan Reeves wanted to see him. Sharpe was terrified, anticipating that he would be cut. However, Dan Reeves had another idea. Reeves wanted Shannon to switch positions to tight end, a position unfamiliar to Sharpe and one that required him to learn all new plays. Sharpe struggled to learn the position early, and in his first couple games at tight end, they would put Shannon in motion almost every single play so that John Elway could tell him the assignment. During Shannon's 3rd year in 1992, he began to reveal himself as a real offensive threat in the NFL. Sharpe amassed career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He finished that year with 53 catches for 639 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Broncos finished 8-8 that season and failed to make the playoffs. Head coach Dan Reeves, who drafted Shannon, was fired, and defensive coordinator Wade Phillips was named the new head coach. On the search for offensive coordinator, Wade Phillips made sure to question each candidate. What was their plan for Shannon Sharpe? Phillips, being the defensive coordinator for the past 4 seasons, had not only observed Shannon's growth and impact on the field, but recognized his ability to be an offensive threat, role model for the team, and wanted to ensure Shannon would continue to flourish. Jim Fossil would be hired to the position of offensive coordinator in 1993, and once again Shannon would make career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Sharpe would finish this year with 81 catches, 995 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Additionally, he would be voted as an All-Pro and would be voted to his first Pro Bowl, a moment that he would get to share with his older brother Sterling, who was also voted to the Pro Bowl that year. Shannon would sign his first big NFL contract that offseason, earning a 3-year, $3.65 million extension prior to the 1994 season. 1994 would be another year Shannon would set career highs in both receptions and yards. He would once again make the Pro Bowl alongside his brother, but the Denver Broncos were moving in the wrong direction. They finished 9-7 in 1993, and in 1994 they regressed to just 7-9. This would be the second and final season of Wade Phillips' tenure in Denver. Shannon's career seemed to be hitting its stride, but unfortunately, his big brother Sterling's career was coming to an abrupt end. Sterling Sharpe was forced to retire after the 1994 season at the age of 29. He suffered a neck injury when his head snapped back while blocking Atlanta Falcons safety Brad Edwards on a running play in Week 16. He spent several minutes down on the field before walking off under his own power. Miraculously, Sharpe actually played in the Packers' Week 17 game against the Buccaneers and had 9 catches for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, he would re-aggravate the injury and would be sidelined for the Packers' 2 playoff games in 1994. Off-season testing would show abnormal loosening of the first and second cervical vertebrae, which required surgery and an 8-month recovery. Despite his desire to return to the field, the limited range of motion and risk of re-injury forced him to retire at age 29. He would finish a 7-year career with 5 Pro Bowl selections and 3 first-team All-Pro nods. He became the 10th player to earn the receiving triple crown by leading the league in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and catches during a single season, an illustrious career cut short due to the violent rigors that exist in the game of football. Mike Shanahan would be hired as the new head coach of the Broncos in 1995. Shanahan began his NFL coaching career in 1984 as the Broncos wide receiver coach, and 11 years later, here he was taking on an aging quarterback and a team with a reputation of not being able to get it done in the big game. Shannon would continue to show prowess, being selected to his 3rd consecutive Pro Bowl. The Broncos would improve to 8-8 and in 1995 look to finally turn the page on their woes of the last decade. By this time, Shannon had solidified himself as one of the best, if not the best tight end in the National Football League. But quarterback John Elway was coming to the end of his career. He would turn 36 in 1996, and pressure seemed to be mounting to a boiling head. John Elway was always beloved in the media. He was one of the last of what they referred to as a golden boy. Elway had a squeaky clean reputation with fans and was revered for spending his entire career in Denver. He was a hero to many, but Elway had suffered 3 crushing losses in the Super Bowl, and it had been 6 years since Elway had led the Broncos to Super Bowl 24, where they would suffer an embarrassing loss of 55-10 to the 49ers. But 1996 felt different. Elway would lead the Broncos to a career-high 13 wins and head into the 1996 playoffs as heavily favored number 1 seeds. Shannon would once again set new career highs in yardage and touchdowns. He would cross the decade mark in scores for the first time in his career and would be named to an All-Pro first team for the 2nd time. But he too was searching for something greater than what was on his stat sheet. Boasting the number 1 seed in the 1996 playoffs, the Broncos were matched up against a 5th seed wild-card Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars had just entered the league as an expansion team along with the Carolina Panthers prior to the 1995 season, so to be a wild card team after just 2 seasons was a feat impressive in itself. The Jaguars stunned America and beat the Broncos 30-27, and the Broncos would again have to wait another year for a shot at the Super Bowl. Shannon took this loss personally. He felt responsible for dropping 2 key passes in the game and made it his mission in the offseason to set the tone that he and the Broncos would be ready when they got their chance again. Shannon would sign another extension with the Broncos prior to the 1997 season. This time, it would bolster a 3-year, $7.5 million contract that would make him one of the highest paid tight ends in the league. The Broncos would also enter the season with a new look. The Broncos ditched their classic Orange Crush uniforms they had donned for over 30 years and went with a new rebrand that included a logo and a more imposing look, with a darker style uniform. The Broncos would win 12 games in 1997, but failed to win their division, so they entered the playoffs as a wildcard team. Their first matchup? The Jacksonville Jaguars. The Broncos would steamroll the Jaguars to a rout of 42-17. They would beat the Chiefs and the Steelers en route to Super Bowl 32, where they would take on the Green Bay Packers. Shannon would lead the team in receptions and catch a third of all of Elway's passing yards. The Broncos would defeat the Packers on a 67-degree San Diego night. Shannon Sharpe, the Golden Boy John Elway, and the Denver Broncos were finally champions for the first time in history. Shannon would go on to give his brother his Super Bowl ring in honor of his career being cut short. As defending Super Bowl champions, 1998 took on a different meaning for the Broncos. Only 4 teams in history had repeated a Super Bowl title, and the Broncos knew that they would have a giant target on their back. However, that didn't stop the Broncos from winning their first 13 games in 1998 and finishing 14-2 overall. They enjoyed the 1 seed and a first-round bye in the 1998 playoffs. They would go on to win their first 2 playoff games that year by 2 scores or more and met the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 33. The Falcons were coached at the time by one Dan Reeves, the coach who drafted Shannon, and left the Broncos franchise only for them to secure a Super Bowl in the 2nd season after his departure. Shannon recalled knowing the Broncos would win due to the sheer star power on the team. They would go on to win Super Bowl 33 by a score of 34-19. Shannon suffered a torn MCL in the game due to a hit by Falcons cornerback Ray Buchanan. But nonetheless, Shannon Sharpe was now a 2-time Super Bowl champion. John Elway would retire after that season, and Shannon unfortunately suffered a broken collarbone in a Week 5 game against the Oakland Raiders. Sharpe would re-aggravate the injury during rehab and would be placed on IR for the remainder of the 1999 season. The 1999 season also marked the final in Sharpe's 3-year contract he signed prior to the 97 season. He had expressed desire to stay in Denver and thought he would finish his career as a Bronco. But after contract disputes that seemed they would never resolve, Shannon left Denver and signed a 4-year, $13.8 million contract with the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens general manager Ozzie Newsome, a Hall of Fame tight end himself, said about Shannon, "I think he's a threat when he's on the field, and he has to be double-teamed." Shannon would go on to help the Ravens win a Super Bowl in his first season as a Raven. His season numbers took a slight dip, and he was held to just one catch that Super Bowl, but he had a crucial catch in the AFC Championship that he took 96 yards for a touchdown that would be the only touchdown either team would score that day. 2001 would be another good year for Shannon. He would tie for the league lead in receptions and put up a similar yardage number to the previous year. The Ravens would not return to the Super Bowl as they suffered a divisional loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shannon would be selected to his 8th Pro Bowl, but less than 2 weeks after he played in that Pro Bowl, Shannon Sharpe was notified that he would be released to help clear cap space for the Ravens. Sharpe expressed that he saw this coming, and he was not upset that he was being waived. Instead, he stated he was more upset with the way the Ravens handled other impactful players' contracts. Sharpe understood the business, but was not quiet about his disagreements with how players were being handled in Baltimore. Sharpe would sign his final NFL contract in the spring of 2002. He inked a 7-year, $16 million contract to sign with his former team, the Denver Broncos. Although the contract years on this deal seem odd, as Shannon was a 34-year-old tight end at this point, the deal was structured with the understanding that Sharpe would only play one more season for the Broncos. Instead, he played 2, appearing in 12 games in 2002 and 15 games in 2003. He initially expressed that he would return to the Broncos for a 13th season in 2004. However, after Deion Sanders left the sports desk at CBS, there was a vacancy and an opportunity that Sharpe could not pass up, and in 2004, Shannon Sharpe retired from the National Football League.
Most players retire in their true sunset years, take on minimal roles in-game, and spend most of their time helping develop younger players. Shannon Sharpe retired at the absolute top of his game. In 2003, he finished 2nd in receptions, yards, and touchdowns for all tight ends, behind only Hall of Fame tight end Tony Gonzalez, and in front of his successor in Baltimore, Todd Heap. Additionally, he became the first tight end to eclipse 800 receptions in a career. He also became the first tight end to have over 10,000 career receiving yards, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 4 first-team All-Pro recognitions, 8-time Pro Bowl selection, a selection on the 1990s All-Decade team, and a host of other accolades and accomplishments. A surefire Hall of Famer, Shannon changed the game of football for tight ends to come, revolutionized the position, all while maintaining who he is without compromise. Shannon was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame on February 6, 2011. His heartfelt speech included messages about his level of dedication, his unwavering love for his grandmother Mary Porter, who unfortunately passed away 1 month before Shannon's induction, and the sentiment that he felt that he was the only member of the Hall of Fame who can say he is not the best player in his own family. Referring to his brother Sterling, Shannon spent a moment of his time pleading with Hall of Fame Selection Committee to take a good look at his brother's NFL stats and consider him for the Hall of Fame going forward. It took 14 years, but Shannon's call to action was finally fulfilled, and he would be the one to let his brother know that he was being inducted into the 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame class. With such an outstanding NFL career, no one could predict what the future would hold for Shannon. His career with CBS lasted almost a decade. He then continued his media career as both a writer as well as a host for a SiriusXM radio show. Shannon's biggest break would happen in 2016 when longtime co-hosts of ESPN's First Take, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, decided to part ways. Skip Bayless announced that he would be moving to Fox Sports and starting a new morning show there. His co-host would be Shannon Sharpe. It would be on Undisputed for the next 7 years that we would become acclimated with Shannon's style of media reporting. Often viewed as overzealous, Shannon did not hide who he was at all. He expressed strong opinions that ruffled some feathers, but also amassed him many supporters. His antics as his persona, Uncle Shay Shay, became polarizing to many. He would often make outlandish claims about LeBron James and his status as the greatest basketball player to ever live. Takes that would sweep social media, make him a viral sensation, and someone that everyone wanted a piece of. Undisputed was created, no doubt, as Skip Bayless's child of glory, but Shannon slowly became the main attraction of the show. Audiences wanted more of Shannon. We began to see him in many different lights as this newfound broadcaster who cared more about delivering the message how he saw fit than the standard we had been used to. There was no dip in professionalism, as Shannon has always been quick to apologize when he is wrong, and just as quickly double down when he is right. During the pandemic of 2020, Shannon started his own podcast on YouTube entitled Club Shay Shay, a platform where Shannon would host guests via video conference and discuss various topics. The podcast would win awards in 2021 and 2022, bringing even more attention to Shannon and his brand. But all great things come to an end, and in May of 2023, after 7 years on Undisputed, Shannon reached a buyout with Fox Sports, allowing him to be a free agent. Shannon gave a heartfelt message to Skip Bayless on his final episode of Undisputed and thanked him for his support throughout the years. Many speculated that the separation had stemmed from ongoing feuds with co-host Skip Bayless. There were viral moments that showcased Skip seemingly losing control of his emotions and almost berating Sharpe on their show, moments Shannon has alluded to since his departure. Nevertheless, Shannon was absolutely at the height of his media career. He was seemingly loved by so many and had outgrown his role at Undisputed. 3 months later, in August of 2023, it was announced that Shannon would be the new co-host on ESPN's flagship morning show, First Take, alongside Stephen A. Smith.
A move that may not have been the direct factor, but a move that has since catapulted Shannon into new heights. Around this same time, Shannon began doing recap videos every Sunday following NFL football with former Pro Bowler Chad Johnson in a segment called Nightcap. Initially, these videos were posted to the Club Shay Shay YouTube channel, but after just 2 weeks, a new YouTube channel, Nightcap, was created. And in just 4 months, their channel had surpassed 1 million subscribers. Club Shay Shay has close to 4 million subscribers at the time of this video, and Shannon has released several videos that have reached tens of millions of views. His Cat Williams interview was the most viewed interview on YouTube in 2024 and has close to 100 million views. His Monique interview amassed 13 million views in less than 2 weeks. He has built his platform to expand upon sports and delve into pop culture, something that has exponentially increased his ability to be viral. Sharpe's podcast Club Shay Shay has garnered critical acclaim, winning the Best Sports Podcast at the 2024 iHeart Podcast Awards and earning a Webby Award for his interview with Cat Williams. Additionally, his collaborative podcast Nightcap with Ocho Cinco received multiple nominations at the 2024 Sports Podcast Awards. Sharpe's influence was further recognized when Complex named him the most entertaining sports media personality of 2023. And in December of 2024, he was honored by the East-West Shrine Bowl as a member of their All-Century team, acknowledging his exceptional contributions to football. Moreover, in 2024, Sharpe received the Advocate of the Year Award from DiversityCom in partnership with the NAACP for using his platform to spotlight important societal issues. Shannon is all over social media. He is the most polarizing figure in sports media today. What's to come for Shannon? Only he knows. But getting this far was not an accident. There have been roadblocks and speed bumps through every aspect of Shannon's life, and his perseverance is why he is where he is today. The host of celebrities who have taken shots at Shannon over the last few years is only indicative of his success. There's an idea that picking on Shannon can make something viral or more popular, but that's only because Shannon has been the one to beat. He doesn't need another ESPN contract. He doesn't need another podcast deal. He has built his brand with a foundation so solid that he could relinquish himself from any governing body and be just as impactful. A man born with a lisp and still became one of sports' most astute and popular commentators. A man who played Division II football as a wide receiver but achieved pro football immortality as a tight end. From the fields of Glenville, Georgia, to the bright lights of ESPN and more, Sharpe's journey continues to inspire us all.